we're recording too. 1490 WHBB. Good afternoon to you on this Monday afternoon, May 2nd. The Cool Jazz Cafe, Terry Chestnut asked me to sit in for him this afternoon just to do this interview. I have the pleasure of doing the interview with Chad Mceachern. Chad, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Mceachern.
Mceachern.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah. Good. How you been?
I've been great.
You know, come up to your microphone a little bit.
Sure.
Make sure we get everything.
All right.
One of the first things that I remember that you impressed me with was when the pandemic first hit. And it was at the city council meeting, the very first city council meeting right after things became official. And one of the things that you said in that meeting that caught my ear, and you have said it since, because you said it twice, I believe, or during Bloody Sunday celebrations. And that was that the root cause of a lot of the problems that we have in the Black Belt and in Selma and Dallas County are not being addressed.
Correct.
You know, you guys have been here how long have you been here since?
We're starting our 85th year.
85 years.
Since 1937.
You think maybe that means you have some kind of a commitment?
I believe so. I believe so.
And tell us about your programs, because I want to get into, you know, these root causes and what some of your approach has been to try and address it. But first, before I do that, let me back up and you tell us, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. My name is Chad Mceachern, and the President and CEO of the Edmonites Missions.
Okay, and the Edmonites Missions, what is the Edmonites Missions mission? So
the Edmonites Missions is to serve those who are on the margins, and that's what we've been doing since 1937. The Edmonites Missions was founded here July 7th, 1937, by two Catholic priests from Vermont, Father Francis Casey and Father Barney Perro. When
did Father Willett get here?
Father Willett was here in the 60s.
So from 37 until the 60s, what happens? I mean, what do? You lay a foundation?
It was laying a foundation. During that time, Good Samaritan Hospital was open in 1943. Holy Infant. It started out as Holy Infant, where we were serving the seniors, and then went on to. But from day one, feeding has been a #1 priority for the Edmonites Missions and tending to those in poverty.
Have you always had an open door policy
Yes.
for race?
Yes. I mean, typically where we're located, it's African American population, but and that would be our focus. But certainly we would welcome anyone that's in need.
Mm-hmm. We're not taking calls today. This is a straight interview. This is not Viewpoint. This is the Cool Jazz Cafe, and so we're not taking any calls this afternoon for our guests. So, why did you come to Selma in the beginning in the 30s?
So it was at the invitation of the Pope, who was asking for priests to come and evangelize to what was deemed then the unvangelized.
You mean the Pope?
The Pope.
The Pope?
the main man for Catholics.
Man.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize
and he sent out an invitation, and in fact, the Society of St. Edmund responded to that call and came down here. And when Father Barney and Father Francis Casey arrived, they had $50 in their pocket, and they came in an old Pontiac and they drove. And when they first arrived, what they realized was that in many senses there was not a lack of faith or trust in God, but there was abject poverty. And so from day one, they started feeding from the back door of the mission house. Peanut butter sandwiches and whatever fruit they could get, and it all started from there. Very simple.
So that's the origin of the Bosco Center?
Yes. So the Bosco Center, I will say, started in 1986, and it was in partnership with Reverend Anderson at the time here in Selma, and Father Roger
and Tabernacle.
Yes, and he and Father Roger LaCharité. They partnered together, and so that's what became the real formal institution, if you will, of what is now called the Bosco Nutrition Center. But the it's evolved, and what the how it got its name from the Bosco was from the Bosco Boys Club of back in the 50s and 60s. And so and that was where many young men and women came to gain further education after a place to socialize that was safe, and a place that they could grow and thrive together in a collegial atmosphere.
Now, is my memory correct? Is Father Robinson figured into that?
So Monsignor Robinson, yes, of course, and unfortunately, both he and Bishop Moses Anderson have both passed away in recent years, and that was a tremendous loss for us as an organization, but also just in the work that we do.
Was he originally from here?
Yes,
or?
both Moses Anderson, Bishop Moses Anderson, who became an auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of Detroit, and Monsignor Robinson, both Selmians, and he rose the rank to be a Monsignor, and Bishop Anderson to be a bishop in the Catholic Church.
And both African American.
And both African American.
And
correct.
that was that rare? I mean, for an African American to.
Well, I mean, in that time, if you when they came in, certainly to be a Catholic here in this region was in and of itself.
That was rare by
was
itself.
rare. And there's an interesting piece that I think might be of interest too, is that when Bishop Anderson joined and Monsignor Robinson joined, at that time anybody who passed away here in Selma that was an Edmondite was buried in Old Live Oak Cemetery. And when Bishop Anderson and Monsignor Robinson joined, they had all the bodies exhumed from Old Live Oak and brought to what was then Fairlawn, now Serenity Gardens. And the reason was that because the brothers would be separated, because blacks couldn't be buried in Old Live Oak Cemetery.
Wow.
And so they exhumed any bodies that were Edmondite priests at the time and moved them to Fairlawn, Serenity Gardens, so that the brothers would never be separated.
And that included the white priest as well?
Yes.
Obviously,
yes,
since
yes,
it was Old
yes.
Live
So now
Oak.
all of our priests and those who had been very, very closely associated with the Edmondite missions are all buried at Serenity Gardens.
Now, in the segregated South, Catholics and Jews and blacks held about the same status, huh?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, how do you explain the Edmonites being able to thrive, and how do you explain a thriving Jewish community in Selma?
So I don't know that I can explain the thriving Jewish community. I will speak that the Catholic community is still very small here in Selma, but I think what has made the difference certainly is that we are part of the community. We've never separated ourselves out of the community, and so particularly as an organization, we've always wanted to respond to the needs of the community, not impose what we think ought to happen in the community, but speak about the need and then try to respond in that more collaborative way to make us one in the community rather than
So you build consensus, as opposed to dictatorship.
You don't want that. I mean, we're here to be servants of the servants. So we want to be of service. We want to be good partners in the community, and we want to do what's best for the community. And sometimes that's painful. Sometimes it stretches the missions. But it's what we're called here to do, and it really is a blessing. It really is a blessing.
I've heard you give some numbers on the number of people that you feed each year. How many people are you feeding?
So last year in 2021, so calendar year 2021, we served 339,054 meals out of our nutrition center.
Goodness. Now, is that just lunch or dinner?
Lunch and dinner.
Lunch and dinner.
Lunch, dinner, and we have what's called the Meals of Hope, which delivers to homebound seniors, those that are confined to home and can't get out to get nutritious meals. Along with our Meals of Hope delivery, obviously the folks that deliver are doing wellness checks to make sure that folks are up and moving and aren't distressed. One time we had someone who was delivering a meal and found that the electricity had gone in this individual's home, and their electric recliner, they were
couldn't
reclined
move.
and they couldn't get out of the chair. So not only are you delivering a meal, but a lot of times our seniors in particular will have their medications lined up, and as soon as that meal comes, they will take their medication with the food. And so, every day you kind of see folks, and we get calls from doctors saying that, this patient is doing better, and they can only attribute it to eating regularly, eating healthier food. They're taking their medication on time, because our guys or gals who are checking, delivering the food will say, hey, have you taken your heart medication today? Have you done this? And if there's something that needs to be brought back to the office that this senior or this infirm person at the time might need, that's brought back to the office as well, so that we can dispatch a social worker through Catholic Social Ministries to check in on that person and see really what's going on and what further care might be deemed necessary.
Now, you also collaborate with Kathy Needham. And,
yes,
what is that?
HealthLink. HealthLink. Yes,
right. Mm-hmm.
That has become an incredible partnership. And one of the things that we did right before the pandemic is that we renovated what had been our senior program space, and that was renovated into clinic space, which was desperately needed for our folks. That UAB comes through Doc on a Spot. Kathy, who does HealthLink with medications, it has been just wonderful, because when somebody comes in and visits with one of our folks at Catholic Social Ministries, we often find out that their needs go beyond what they're actually in there for.
So it's becoming a one-stop.
It's a one-stop place, and that's what we wanted, because our folks, it's you speak truth to this. If somebody's coming from Orville and they just paid someone $25 to bring them into Selma, they don't have time to, or the money necessarily to go back to Orville, come back 2 days later to try to get their medication and get it set up. And so what we do, partnering with HealthLink, is we'll do what we can, and we get them hooked up right away, because at times it will take a month to get them in the system to get the medications that they need. And so the missions will pay. We can get them that prescription, we can get it filled, we can get it taken care of. They can go back to Orville or wherever the case may be.
They've got everything they need.
And they've got that 30-day supply, and then HealthLink will get them hooked up with the medications, and I'm sure 9 times out of 10 they're delivered right to their home. And people are served.
You just did eyeglasses too.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
So we partner again with UAB and with the Lions Club. They're coming and they do these various clinics. And again, they can do it now because they have these examination rooms that are dark. And so nothing is makeshift. One of the things that the missions and the fathers have always taught me was that just because we serve the poor, it doesn't mean that they deserve anything less than what is best. And so, the space that we create, whether it's for an eye exam or some type of medical exam, whatever the case may be, it should be a dignified space and not some makeshift space for
you're
an
first
individual.
class all the way around. And that takes money. And
Yes.
And you've just built a recreation center. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break.
All right.
And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the new recreation center and just who the Bullocks were. I've been wondering about that.
Happy to tell you.
We'll be back with more right after this.
Go to shopdavesmarket.com and place your grocery order from...
Okay, 1490 WHBB, and we're back with the fathers of St. Edmunds and Chad. So now, first of all, it takes a lot. I remember I used to be friendly with Mr. Ed Moss.
Yes, yeah.
And he took me
Infamous.
on the infamous.
Infamous.
Yes, sir. He took me on a tour of the facility back in the day, with pre-computers, as we know them, pre-PCs and cell phones. And there was an impressive operation going on then.
Yeah.
It seemed to be automated, as I remember. There was some sort of automation. And so, but you were sending out, I think you were sending out mail and soliciting funds nationwide.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming you still do that?
Continues to this day.
So, but I also heard you give a number. You said that you talked about the few, in terms of, there's only a few people really that are supplying a lot of money. So how does that work?
So a lot of that happens through direct mail, we are connecting with our folks, telling the stories. We have wonderful folks here that we help that are willing to share their story to help others, which I think speaks volumes about the community that we serve. Because a lot of times when we're there to serve them, you find out that they're actually more concerned about a neighbor or something else that's happening. And when we ask, can we tell your story, and of course we always will change the name, we're not, trying to expose anyone like that, they say, yes, if this is something that will help others, then I'm happy to tell my story. What I find amazing is that many of our donors throughout the United States, they will call in, they feel a very personal connection to the folks that we serve throughout the Black Belt, and they'll say, how can this be true? And I'll invite them to come. And I always invite them. I say, we do not need to lie about the situation.
They think third world when you just describe,
Yep.
I've been on my soapbox about the water and sanitation issues in Wilcox
Sure.
and Lowndes County,
in other areas
in
that
other
we
areas
serve.
right in this, Africa has some issues, but we've got some of the same issues right here.
Well, the city of Selma has a lower life expectancy than Bangladesh,
No.
a third world country. So
Wow.
I was at an Equal Justice Initiative health convening this past weekend, where we heard similar stats. These we know from our own work and research that we're doing, that we present to our donors. But when we have 40% of our children live in poverty, and 60% of all families in Selma live in poverty, there are real issues going on. And they need to be addressed, and we feel compelled to continue in the vein of that work that started 85 years ago. We're not done yet.
Well, you also help people pay utility bills.
We do.
And you have
Yes.
clothing.
Yes.
What all do you do?
Sure,
what are social ministries?
Sure. So we do, in fact, have a clothing room, and just last year alone in our clothing room, which is also household items and things like that, we helped 4,946 families.
Wow.
And with those types of things, along with HealthLink and Doc on a Spot, we served 1,634 people, and we had encounters with our seniors and youth last year of 8,320. But the question you asked was Catholic Social Ministries, and last year our clients totaled 13,414.
Wow.
So those are sort of the main core pieces of, I would say, the outreach pieces of help, of service that we continue to do. So food, clothing, shelter, and alike. But we are now obviously expanding with the addition of our new community rec center, where we now have a regulation size basketball court, state-of-the-art weight room, classrooms, and so a facility that really can meet the needs of all those
in
folks.
fact, on Bloody Sunday,
Yes.
Brown Chapel had its service
Yes.
there because the church is being renovated, and it was broadcast live
Yes.
on YouTube and Facebook, and it was excellent. The quality of the stream was excellent.
It was a wonderful experience, and I was we were proud to host, as we called ourselves, Brown Chapel on Broad Street for the day. Pastor Strong was very gracious to work with us, and we were proud to host it. I think it just shows what we can be when we really want to truly act as a community partner with one another.
Well, Queen of Peace Church
Yes.
was very active in the voting rights movement.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I believe Miss Alice West,
Yes.
I know she's a member.
Yes, she is.
I don't know if she was a member then or not.
I would suspect she was.
But I would suspect that maybe she was,
Yeah.
And then Father Willett. Are you familiar with his story?
Yes.
Well, tell us the story about Father Willett.
Well, and I won't pretend to be an expert in Father
And he's not
Willett.
African American.
No,
I'm saying that
no,
for
he's
people
white.
who don't know.
But he was he was actually very close to Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King said that he was the most righteous white man he'd ever met. And but Father Ouellette was unrelenting in his work of striving for justice and voting rights. Went to a mass meeting where folks gathered around him and said, "Father, you shouldn't be here." We at the Assumption Church at the time, which was the Black Catholic Church, had a KKK sign put on it that said, "We're watching you." So there have been many things. Martin Luther King visited Good Samaritan Hospital. Jimmy Lee Jackson died at Good Samaritan Hospital. John Lewis was tended to at Good Samaritan Hospital. So, the Edmondite Missions, through its many ministries throughout the years, has always been deeply involved and deeply committed to that of service. And Father Ouellette particularly led many of his many Catholics to actually answer the call. He himself was asked to leave the diocese for his safety, but he was an agitator. And so I'm trying to channel a little bit.
He's another President Walensky,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah.
They said, give him a ride. He said, bring me some bullets.
And he did not. He was not a willing participant in that, but he did what he could. And as Catholics, we can have Mass anytime, day or night. And in the day, there was a canteen behind the church, and Father Ouellette would host meetings. And they were early meetings, and no one would bother them because they're like, Catholics are having Mass. But these are stories that are lost in the telling of really the precursor to what happened at Tabernacle and things, the larger things that happened. But folks were sitting back and doing this quietly.
That's very interesting. So now, who are the Bullocks?
So Dr. Michael and Catherine Bullock. Dr. Michael Bullock passed away. They'd been Mrs. Catherine Bullock is still alive. In fact, she was here for the dedication of the building. She and her husband were deeply committed. Her mother was a donor to the missions, and Catherine is, I would guess, now in her late 80s. And her first contribution to the missions was 25 cents. and she and her mom through the years had been donors, and she was. We went out on a visit to talk to her about what I really hoped we could do in Selma to change the narrative, and she asked. She's a very educated woman, and asked me a question. She says, "Why a community rec center? Why a community center? Why not a school? Why not this? Why not that? Why not funding a program that feeds more?" And I said to her, Catherine, I said, "I want the biggest doorway in Selma." And she looked at me a little puzzled, and she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I want the biggest door in Selma so that we can attract anyone and everyone and that they feel safe." I said, "I want to get our young folks, I want our seniors, and I want anyone that needs a safe place, a cool place in the summer and a warm place in the winter, a place where they want to get healthy, where they want to learn, where they want to come together as a family." I said, I want us to have that within walking distance of those that need it most. And and at that moment, we asked her for the gift, and she looked back, and she said, "Okay." She lives in California, had never been to Selma, and it had all been through the writings of our letters back and forth and communication, and she just felt compelled, like she really wanted to do something that would make a difference.
So they financed it?
Parts of it, yes.
Okay, okay.
Others.
I was wondering, why is it named after? And that's one of the reasons why.
She was the largest donor.
Wow.
And she said when she came here to Selma and we pulled the sign down, she wept and she said, "If only my husband could see this today."
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a little controversy brewing in that you're in the shadow of the Brown YMCA,
Yes.
whose mission it was to do something similar in terms of inner city youth and giving them a safe place to be able to do a lot of the recreational things that you're talking about. And but it sounds like there may be some competition for the building now. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that I would classify it as a competition. I would say that there is I guess there's some differing views on what should happen, and I will say that over the last couple of weeks there has been some rhetoric and things tossed about the missions, and it's unfounded certainly, and I'll explain that in a minute. We early on had actually investigated rehabilitating the Brown Y. That was our first thought.
Before the community center?
Yes, before we built what we built. Because we figured it would be, if in fact
simpler.
it was something that people knew, certainly, and, if in fact it was a viable option, then let's see what it would cost, what it was, what were we looking at in terms of health and rehabilitating the space, making it code, doing those kinds of things. And so we delved into that, and we've spent thousands and thousands of dollars investigating, doing our due diligence. The one thing the missions does is we don't waste money, and so we made sure that we did environmental studies. We did the study to figure out what the land looked like, what the problems were.
Is there asbestos?
There
in that
is
building?
asbestos. I can tell you. I can tell you. There are health issues with that building, and there's something. So all of the tiles that were used in there are made up of. They're 5% asbestos, and they've gotten wet, and they've all fallen down into decay.
So that's mold.
Yeah, it's mold, and it's also a very, very big health risk. But there's something that folks are not thinking about, and that is that the exterior siding is made up of 20 to 25% asbestos. So the bricks.
The outside, the bricks. What?
Yes, and I had to write this down because I know that I would mess it up, and as I just said to you, I don't want to mess anything up. The materials are classified as friable, meaning that they can crumble, pulverize, or turn into powder by hand pressure. Any friable material containing asbestos would require mitigation before any work could be done on the building. Also, any of the material touched by these materials, like the insulation where the ceiling tiles fell, would also require mitigation. This is a very, very, very expensive task.
Can it be done?
Sure. It can be done. So anybody that would like to see what we've done for a study, all of it's for you to come and see. If you want to see it, you can see it. We used a company out of Montgomery, and they are called the Carmichael Engineering Company. And they estimated to tear it down would cost approximately $250,000 with the asbestos mitigation.
Just to tear it down.
Just to tear it down.
So, what did they say that it was possible to take the shell as it is and get the asbestos out, or that's not really
I think
possible?
you're talking. I don't think that would be possible, only because the brick exterior, you would be disturbing those things, which is the encounter we had when we tore down our old administrative buildings and built our new community center.
That's what you're doing now, isn't it? That looks like you got something else going on.
So we got a new project going on across the street.
That's what it looks like. So now, but you were going to use the same land for something else?
So I'll tell you what we were hoping to do. So, finding out what we found, doing our due diligence, we wanted to tear the building down, and we wanted to turn that space into green space, which would also allow us to do outdoor activities in conjunction with our indoor activities. So it was having a walking path for seniors. It was a little amphitheater where we could conduct plays and do certain things like that. Could potentially have a outdoor basketball court. It would be green space for our kids to play, or for our seniors to walk, or anybody to just sit and contemplate.
What about the swimming pool? And was that looked at in terms of closing it up, or closing it down, or building over it, or is it an issue? Or?
So it's not an issue. It would be filled in and covered over, and then it would just be a level piece of land at that time.
Now, you in the past, I seem to remember having donated at least I think $5,000 each time to the Dinkins pool.
So So the reason, and I'll tell you, because many folks have said, why didn't we build a pool with along with our community center?
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason was we support the community pool, which is the Dinkins pool, and we would also during other times prefer to bring our kids to the Johnson
to the new
Y.
right? Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, this is not about competing for duplicating services.
Duplicate.
Yeah.
That's one of the big problems that I found
Yeah.
in terms of the nonprofit community
Right.
in Dallas County.
And so,
Duplication of services.
Right.
That's what everybody's proposing, to do the same thing.
Right.
Serve the same population.
Right.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
and that's why, and that was very intentional. That's why we've made commitments to help support that, so that it would be free for everybody to go to the Dinkins pool. And if we're having a program that we want our kids to go, and for some reason it's in the winter, we would take them to the Johnson Y, and to us that made more sense than trying to have our own.
Okay, we're going to take a break here. I guess is Mr. Chad Mceachern. I have to look at your name when I pronounce it.
That's
What
all right.
what is it? What
Mceachern.
Mceachern.
Yeah.
Okay. What ethnic? They're
Scottish.
Scottish.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll be doggone. All right. Okay. Well, we'll be back with more with our guests right after these messages.
Home. For 23 years, Alabamians have crossed state lines.
And I am also recording this interview. It will run back either on Viewpoint and or selmapostherald.com. We'll do segments on it. We want people to know what you guys do. I appreciate what you do. So now with this, with the Brown Y, people have come in to take a look at the feasibility study that you've done.
So we've been working on looking at the various aspects of the Brown Y since 2016. And because that's, like I said earlier, we were trying to figure out the best way forward, and that building was there. We said, if it could work, if it's the best let's use it. And then it came back, it was going to be it was more cost effective to build a brand new building than it would be to rehabilitate the old one.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about some of the other programs? I know that you had offered piano lessons.
Yeah, so
you had done tennis.
Yeah. So what we have just broken the 1,800 mark of registrants at the center, which we are very, very happy about. So, but we have basketball going on almost every day. We have a regulation-sized court, and I keep saying, it'd be great one of these days if we could get like Alabama and Auburn basketball teams to come and have a scrimmage or some kind of a game, for spectators.
Seems like I think they've done that once here. It seems like I remember them having done something similar.
Or we get ASU, or just get some two good college teams to come and play on this court for our youth to see and experience that kind of energy of a college game.
It's in other words, it's built with that in mind.
It is,
so
yes.
it can handle that kind of a game.
It's regulation size.
It's regulation
Yes.
size, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I understand you're also doing something with fine arts.
So we have a fine arts program. We have about 12 girls signed up for ballet lessons now, piano lessons. We have tennis lessons. We have Bible study. Like we said, we have the weight room, and folks are coming in there of all ages, working on different things. Silver Sneakers is running. Zumba just started, and it was responding to a group of people saying, "Are you ever going to try Zumba here?" And we did it one time, and the class filled up, and so now we're looking to expand it to another class during the week as well. And we have, like I said, Bible study, and there's always something. We have family night. In November, we hosted a family night. We had over 100 people come with their kids to watch a movie. We have a movie screen, and so they watched the movie. They had popcorn and hot dogs, and it was a great evening.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take this break, and we're not taking calls, and we'll be back with more right after these messages.
Free tire service in Selma, Alabama.
Yeah, I tell you.
Cell phone service, more public school funding, clean air, water, and sewage, and ensuring our seniors don't retire in poverty. Vote for Rob Stewart on May 24th, 2022.
1490 WHBB, and as we begin to wind up this hour, and I guess we got another 10 minutes or so. I actually this was only scheduled for 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so we've gone way over.
Okay.
And which is good though. This is good information. People need to know what you do, and everything you do is free.
Yes, yes. So one of the commitments that we make in partnering with the community is that everything that we offer is free, and it is our commitment to make sure that when folks are in poverty, to ask them to pay for something automatically excludes them from certain experiences, and
Right.
so part of what we are trying to do in our new, I'll say the new phase of where we're headed in the missions is to create these new possibilities that there is no barrier for someone to find success through our education programs and all of it, that these new possibilities, there's no barrier to folks to being healthy. You can come and do silver sneakers, you can come and do Zumba, you can go work in the weight room, you can go play basketball, you can get a healthy meal at Bosco, you can go over to Catholic Social Ministries and get the aid that you might need, and also get health care and sign up for a health clinic through Doc on a Spot. I mean, it's just, we've got to be servant leaders in a community that needs leadership. It needs folks that advocate for true change and making things different for the poor, and to sort of believe that we're living in a place that is flush with wealth is foolish. And so our goal is to continue to serve those that are our brothers and sisters, and they're just our neighbors. They're not poor neighbors, they're just our neighbors.
Now, what is that across the street from the Bosco Center? Is there some sort of a youth center, or is that where the clothing ministry is now, or?
So that's the Academy building.
The Academy
That's the
building.
Academy building.
What is that?
So that is a. So we're trying to change some names. So typically folks would call them after-school programs. We try to think of them more as a transfer of knowledge. And that the program, the Academy program in particular, works with youth 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. And it's to work specifically on ACT scores, but experiential learning. So we take them to college campuses, we take them to the Shakespeare Theater, we take them to a game. Last year they visited New Orleans, and as they were going across, we try to really matriculate those that are interested into the Academy program, where they would then be part of this, the Academy. And then once they are through the Academy program, they would become mentors and have, in the 11th and 12th grade, before they graduate from high school, in which they would be